Sleepy town settling for the night, where the Owens women live their lives. And it's about time that the back porch light comes on at that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street.
Hey, Fran.
Hello.
What's going on?
I'm just excited we made it to what is this, the 4th episode?
Yeah.
Third?
Oh my gosh.
Fourth?
That has yet to be seen. We don't know what order it's going to come out in.
Yeah. It could be the 3rd. It could be the 4th. It could be the 10th. We don't know.
We don't know. And so seriously, though, we thought this might, looking at the notes, well, initially looking at the notes, I thought this would be like, a little shorty one. Maybe like we're not committing to any time frame. Like we can't guarantee you guys an hour. I'm sure we could talk for more than 10 minutes, but this looked like a little shorty one. But then this morning I'm looking at the notes. I'm like, this might be a little longer.
This
Who
is
knows?
a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting.
Yes. Oh, I guess we should say what we're talking about. Welcome.
Oh. Well,
what are we talking about?
They should see the title of this episode, right? But yes, we are talking about the Deathwatch Beetle.
The Deathwatch Beetle.
Yeah, so there's actually, this beetle kind of is an extensive plot point. It's in the movie, it's in the book, and it spans all the way up until the very last book. So, and also there is a lot of lore and superstition around the Deathwatch Beetle. It is a real thing, but also we're going to talk about some other generalized beetle lore and superstition and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, the Deathwatch Beetle, we found some stuff that dates back to the 1700s in some literature. So this guy has been a focus in not pop culture, but culture for a very long time. But not just that, we're going to dive into a little bit of like what the beetle means and symbolizes in lots of different cultures as well.
Yeah, before we dive into all of that, we just want to give some shout outs since we don't really have any patrons yet. We do want to acknowledge our Instagram followers and everybody who has been interacting with our grid posts and making the movie scene emoji, the guessing games, a lot of fun. So thank you so much to all of these Instagram peeps. Silver_on_the_willow.
So Silver on the Willow is actually a good friend of mine that lives in town. Hey girl, hey.
So a lot of these people I think are actually both of our friends, like if not mutually, then exclusively. So thank you guys for the support. We really appreciate it. Wild Spellcraft, she's actually one of my Bohemian Magic patrons. Is it Cunning Celt?
I think it's Celt. I don't know. Celtic? I don't know.
Because when I think of Celt, I think of like Celtic.
Yeah, well, when I think of Celt, I think of Celtics, like the basketball team, but that's the same thing. And they're like Irish.
I guess it depends on where you're from. Cunning Celt or Celt. We'll go with either one. Jen Moon Dancer, Awaken Grace, Recreating Caitlin, Garden Punk Life, The Homed, ASD Mama, Verbena Beauty Wellness, Miss King.27, Lucan Wolf Witch, Jessica E. Bowers, Baking Dom, Elise 0x, Labrador Wolf Jewelry. That's your friend Ethan, right?
Yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah. And created by EJF, J May, Nightbird Tribute Band, which I think we should talk about that for a second. She's an awesome Stevie Nicks tribute band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We'll have to get her on the show. And Tian Girl 73. So
awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much for enjoying our emoji movie scenes. They've been really interactive and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know, should we keep those going?
And you're doing a really good job, but don't force it. It's got to be natural.
Yeah. I was just kind of planning on doing them as a means of promotion to kind of like do something a little interactive before, we rolled out the show. And also those grid squares, when you post them individually, they kind of look kind of doofy. they're like oversized like portions of the picture that we're trying to make.
And they're shuffling themselves around.
Yeah, they're just shuffling themselves around. And I know for anybody who sees that as they're scrolling through their feed, they're probably like, what is this like oversized portion of a picture? But I wanted to make them a little interactive and a little more fun than just a random little piece of a picture. So
I do want to say real quick, also somebody who has been interacting with our post is my mom. So thanks, Mom. She's been snooping on there. Thank you. So if you find her, you get a golden star.
if they find your mom on there.
Yep.
I haven't seen my mom creeping on our page yet, but I'm sure she'll find her way. All right. So I guess that wraps up our little Instagram follower shout out.
And at this point in time, when you guys are listening to this, everything's already come out. By when we're recording, we have not even dropped the trailer yet. So we're excited. So when you guys hear this later on, oh my gosh, please let us know if you still want us to do the stories, because Justina is a rock star when it comes to those.
I've had a lot of practice. Either that or I have no life.
My favorite is like the you have the fry pan or the hammer, and it's like the boom, and then the fry pan, and then the other boom, and you know exactly what's going on.
Oh yeah, Jimmy's getting what he deserves. Every bit of it.
Yeah, let's, I guess, jump in. We're going to start with some of the mentions in the different series of the book. So before, we went over the book movie contrast a little bit ago, and this is going to deal more with all 4 of the books, right? We're going to just list out the Deathwatch Beetle mentions in all of the books. Even if you haven't read them, we want to let you know where it shows up.
Yeah, I think I kind of dropped off on the Rules of Magic excerpts because it was mentioned a lot in the Rules of Magic. So I didn't really put every instance. I just kind of put the first instance, and I'll just leave it at that. Honestly,
Okay.
I think we're going to need maybe a second Deathwatch Beetle episode in the future. Like
Just
after,
for the Rules of Magic, you think?
yeah, and just like after I read all of the books and have like kind of all of the information under my belt, I think it would be a cool topic to kind of revisit.
Cool, let's do that. Yeah. And so the Rules of Magic is the second book, correct, in the series?
Yeah.
And that goes over when the aunts are younger in the 60s.
And it also touches on when they have their brother Vincent, which we don't even hear about in the movie.
Oh yeah, guys, spoilers here again.
Oh yeah,
if you're not here, if you haven't read them and you don't mind spoilers, cool, stick around.
Yeah, but if you don't want to be spoiled, definitely leave and go read the books, at least the first 1 or 2, and watch the movie for sure.
I mean, you don't have to, but it might be kind of confusing. But some people are like, yeah, I'll just get the Reader's Digest version of this story through this podcast, which is totally fine. So I'm about it. All right, where are we going to start? I guess we'll start in Practical Magic because that is
the
book
movie.
1.
I guess we'll start with the movie because that's where we all were introduced to it first. I mean, no, we were introduced to it in the book, but a majority of us didn't even know that a book existed before we saw the movie. So I guess we'll just start with it in the movie because that's kind of like the most, I guess, universally known. So yeah, so the role that it played in the movie we learn that Maria puts a curse on any man that dare to fall in love with an Owens woman. When an Owens woman hears the ticking of the Deathwatch Beetle, she knows that her lover is doomed to die. So in the movie we see Sally and Jillian's mother. She hears the ticking. Her name is Regina, I believe. And then it is said in the movie that their father died. It doesn't say how, but it does say that her mother then died of a broken heart. Then Sally also experiences the omen, and then her husband Michael dies when getting hit by a truck while crossing the street with a crate of apples on his way to work. And he very dramatically gets the, what do they call it? The axe.
Real quick, hang on. Did we do Book of Magic? I don't know if I want to give. Okay, I see the Book of Magic. There's a big spoiler. Do you want spoilers or no?
Well, in the Book of Magic, I just put the synopsis. I didn't put really anything else other than that. So I think it's fair game. If it's on the back of the book for a synopsis, I think it might be okay.
Okay, well, it's not, but there's a few deaths in that last book, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
I also don't know because I didn't read that one. I just put what I saw.
I know, I don't want to ruin it for you.
No, well, we'll just talk about the synopsis. We don't have to go any further than that.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Because I feel like it's fair game. If it's in the synopsis and on the back of the book, and you kind of have an idea of the rest of the storyline, then I feel like it's cool. But like I said, I think we're gonna have to retouch on this topic in a future episode once
all the books are read. Okay, cool.
And then I kind of have like a bigger, a better sense of the actual turn of events.
Awesome. And some of the mentions in the book, Justina was kind enough to list the pages that these fall on, but
I think that's the only page I listed.
I'm gonna give you credit anyway. So this entry about the Deathwatch Beetle says, the Deathwatch Beetle was found where Michael most often sat for supper. The aunts tried to warn Sally about the omen, but she called it nonsense. There was also is this just you? This isn't a part of the book?
Yeah, this is just me noting what I found in the book, but that's not how she wrote it in the book.
Got it. We also get a black dog omen in the book and the movie, which we went over already. In the book, it is said that no one who is doomed could hear the sound of the Deathwatch Beetle. So Michael is oblivious. But I think he sees and notices that Sally is kind of fussing over him, and he's like, it's fine, like whatever. But
He didn't hear it, so he insisted that the curse doesn't exist. Nothing can go wrong. So
yeah. In the book, Sally hears the ticking of the beetle as she's folding linens when she sees it dart under Michael's chair. In the book, she goes to the aunts and begs them to save Michael before he dies. They insist that they can't do anything about a guaranteed fate. And then it's implied as some time passes when one spring evening, Michael steps off the curb on his way home from the hardware store that he works at, and he is killed by a car full of teenagers, not a Tour de France randomly racing through the street of a small fishing town in Cape Cod. We're going with Cape Cod. I think it's Cape Cod.
I don't know. Like, I'm under the impression that it's like a Cape Cod kind of town, not necessarily like Cape Cod itself, but like some
Got it.
kind of little mini fishing village in Massachusetts.
Okay. Racing through the streets of a small fishing village or a rogue truck that has a hatred for green apples. Your jokes are so cute. You're throwing jokes in. You got to let me know, like, if you want to read it, because you're this
But see, like, I just
surprising
like
me in
I
jokes.
brain dump this, and then like I kind of just like my brain just like does its thing, and I just like I type what I'm thinking at that time. I forgot I wrote this.
You're so funny.
So it's pretty consistent between the book and the movie as far as, you know, Michael not well, in the movie we don't even know if he hears a sound or not. We just know that it has it out for him and he gets the axe.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already discussed in the previous episode or one of the previous episodes that it is different exactly how he dies between the book and the movie.
Something I want to go and do an episode on later is Sally and Michael's house. I was watching the movie the other day to do research for this, and like you only see her ripping up the floor, but you can kind of see in the background her stairwell and like the window and like how it's decorated and stuff. So cute. Like I don't know, hypothetical later topic.
We'll have to write some fan fiction pieces about their whole little house and their life and stuff. Because there's very little that we see about their life in the movie. It's kind of just a montage. So we don't really get a full painted picture of, like, you know, just their everyday life.
That's how you pass time in Hollywood. You gotta splice it all together in a montage.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do these rules of magic and magic lessons, and then you can do the book of magic, because it's a lot of reading and you type today?
Yeah, and also because like I've read Rules of Magic before, but like I said, I'm rereading it right now currently just to refresh on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a magnifying glass search on the Deathwatch Beetle for Rules of Magic, and it's a lot. So I kind of didn't go into too much detail here.
Okay.
I kind of just mentioned the basis of it, how Vincent kind of read about its warning in the Magus, that old grimoire that, you know, he's really into, or that I guess the occult, it's like a dark occult book. It's not the grimoire. It's separate from the aunt's grimoire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he reads about the warning of the Deathwatch Beetle in the Magus, and then he and Franny see the Deathwatch Beetle on the threshold, and I guess it predicted the death of their parents as well as Jet's boyfriend Levi.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cab that they were in struck Levi, killing him instantly. But that's all that I mentioned about Rules of Magic. I'm sure there's a lot more that if you want to add, feel free.
Not off the top of my head, and we can just leave that whole part in if you feel like reading it. Not off the top of my head, that since there is so much in the book, we're just getting an idea down of how I guess Alice Hoffman wants to portray the Deathwatch Beetle in her books.
Yeah.
So we're not going to list every single one from that, because, as you said, it was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And also there's also a lot in Magic Lessons as well, which is the whole book about Maria's backstory. I didn't even touch on it. I didn't even add anything for this portion. So if you want to add some stuff to this portion, feel free.
For Magic Lessons?
Yeah, I didn't touch on anything for this book.
Off the top of my head, well, no, I don't have anything.
Spoiler? No? Okay, that's why I feel like we should definitely revisit this topic once
you're done with the books.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
But for Book of Magic, I read the synopsis on Amazon, and it says the novel begins in a library, and the beloved Aunt Jet Owens hears the Deathwatch Beetle, and she knows she only has 7 days to live. And then it says Jet is not the only one in danger, and the curse is already at work. But I found this to be an inconsistency, because in book 1, it says that no one who is doomed could hear the sound of the Deathwatch Beetle. So if
Oh,
she hears the sound of the Deathwatch Beetle, how does she know it's for her? Because usually it's you don't hear it if you're doomed, right? So I don't know. What do you
that's a
think, Christina?
that is a good point. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think it was supposed to be if it's your death. I thought it was the person the man you love is doomed to die. We're
Right.
going off of what Jetty said, but they don't know what Maria's curse entails. That's a good question. I don't know.
But they do know what Maria's curse entails, because remember in Rules of Magic when Franny was in the library, unbeknownst to her aunt Isabel and her parents, like she was sitting in
Hmm.
the library reading Maria's journal.
Mm.
So she read everything that Maria like had to say about all of that stuff. So I don't know.
So between practical magic and rules of magic, I don't remember how many years in between, but maybe that got a little lost for Alice
Yeah.
Hoffman's
Yeah, I don't know.
catalog of information, which is totally understandable. That's such a
Yeah.
minor detail. That's a really good
It is
catch
such a
though.
minor detail, but it is like I
It's
would think
important.
it's important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know. She did write well, she wrote the first book before the movie came out, a few years, right? And then a
Mhm.
long time passed between the movie and her first book and the Rules of Magic. Rules of Magic came out what, like 2017, 18?
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Yeah, I think it was like
2017. Yeah.
yeah. So it was like
So,
yeah, so it's there was a considerable amount of time between the first book and movie and
mhm.
the last batch of books that she wrote. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering, do you think she pulled some stuff from the movie that she didn't include in her first book to kind of like make things make more sense in the coming
Oh,
books?
absolutely. Yes, dude. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to read these fucking books because
I know.
when I was reading, so that she starts doing it in, I don't know if there's a whole lot in Rules of Magic. We're both kind of rereading it right now, but there's a
Yeah.
lot in Magic Lessons, Maria's story that I'm like, oh, like in the movie. It's exciting.
I can't wait to read that one.
Hmm. And Justina and I were discussing as far as the Deathwatch Beetle and Book of Magic. That's the most recent one, and that came out.
Oh, that one's the most recent one, right? The last one she released?
So the Book of Magic is the last book in the series, and that came out October 12th, 2021. So super recently.
Yeah. The only reason why I remember when the Rules of Magic came out is because I remember you sent me the audiobook like right after my wedding.
Oh,
And
that's so
like
nice.
I was listening to it while I was staying at my boss's house because she was away. So she was like,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And me and Avi didn't have our house yet. So we were kind of like still living at my parents' house. So
Oh,
she was like, yeah, you could stay at my house or whatever if you want a little mini honeymoon before, you know, your own honeymoon.
oh,
So we stayed at her house while her and her husband were away, and we had our little mini moon there. And I remember just like
mini moon.
I was listening to the audiobook the whole time I was there. So
That's awesome.
so that's like my memory of Rules of Magic when I first read it.
Nice. Yeah, that Book of Magic when it came out, I jumped on it and we'll have a whole discussion about it, but we're not going to we have some excerpts here, but I can't really just give away because Justina hasn't read it yet, and I can't wait to. But we have a lot of Deathwatch Beetle stuff, so Jet is not the only one who is affected by it. As the synopsis says, this is free game, right? It's on the back of
Yeah,
the book.
yeah. Free game.
The other characters that are affected, I will look up to see if they hear it or not, because I didn't even look.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
We're definitely gonna have to do another Deathwatch Beetle episode down the road, I think.
cool, cool.
So we're should we skip this whole excerpt? So I don't know. What do you think?
No, if we want to read it, that's fine.
Okay, so this excerpt, this is about Jet Owens in the beginning of Book of Magic. And this is basically about her in the library and how she kind of like knew that this Deathwatch Beetle was predicting her own fate. So the excerpt, it says, some stories begin at the beginning and others begin at the end, but all the best stories begin in a library. It was there that Jet Owens saw her fate in a mirror behind the reference desk. Even in her 80s, Jet was still beautiful. Each day she washed with the black soap the family prepared in March during the dark phase of the moon, with every bar then wrapped in crinkly cellophane. Jet had no aches or pains and had never been ill a day in her life, but fate is fate, and it can often be what you least expect it to be. On this day, when the daffodils had begun to bloom, Jet saw that she had 7 days to live. The Deathwatch Beetle had begun to call from within the walls of the Owens. All right, so it's basically saying that the Deathwatch Beetle is a sound that often went unnoticed until it was so loud it was all a person could hear. When your time came, the Black Beetle would withdraw from hiding and follow you everywhere, no matter where you went. Its presence meant that the past was over and the future no longer existed. This was the moment that revealed how you had walked through the world, with kindness or with fear, with your heart open or closed. It had taken this long for Jet to appreciate that every instant was a marvel. Now everything she saw was illuminated. The sun streaming through the library windows in fierce bands of orange light, a moth tapping at the glass, the sweep of the branches of one of the last elm trees in the Commonwealth. And I want to sidebar right here, elm trees
Mhm.
is also mentioned a lot throughout the
Yeah.
book. So, the sweep of the branches of one of the last elm trees in the Commonwealth, which shadowed the library's lawn. Some people unravel or run for shelter when their time has come. They curse their fate or hide under their beds. But Jet knew exactly what she wished to do in the last days she's been granted. She didn't have to think twice. So,
Ooh.
I just think it's so interesting. I don't know, that inconsistency just bothers me. Like,
Oh no. Well, hopefully when we get to interview Alice Hoffman to lay down like the law
one of these days.
about how this curse works, because we need to know.
Yeah. Well, not just the curse, just like the omen in general. Like, is it those who are doomed to die that don't hear the Deathwatch Beetle? Because in the case of Jet, I mean, she hears it. So that gets a little fuzzy for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to look up the passage from Practical Magic, like what is specifically it says, like he could not hear it or he didn't pay any mind to it, and that's why Michael, didn't think anything was wrong. I'm
He
wondering what the
said
exact phrasing was.
he insisted that nothing could go wrong because I don't think he did hear it.
Mm. See, now I
Yeah.
want to look this up. I don't have the Kindle on here anymore. You got your Kindle nearby,
Yeah.
or do you use your phone?
I do use my phone, but I can pull it up on the computer too. All right, this is Rules of Magic. We wanted to look at Practical Magic, right?
Yeah.
All right. So it says the lesson Sally has learned so long ago in the kitchen to be careful what you wish for was so far and so faded it had turned to yellow dust. But it was the sort of dust that can never be swept up and instead waits in the corner and blows into the eyes of those you love when a draft moves through your house. Antonia was nearly 4 and Kylie was beginning to sleep through the night, and life seemed quite wonderful in every way when the Deathwatch Beetle was found beside the chair where Michael most often sat for supper. This insect, which marks off time, clicking like a clock, issues the sound no one ever wants to hear beside her beloved. A man's tenure on Earth is limited enough, but once the beetle's ticking begins, there is no way to stop it. There's no plug to pull, no pendulum to stop, no switch that will restore the time you once thought you had. The aunts listened to the ticking for several weeks and finally drew Sally aside to issue a warning, but she would pay no attention. Nonsense, she said, and she laughed out loud. She tolerated the clients who came to the back door at dusk every now and then, but she would not allow the aunt's foolishness to affect her family. The aunt's practice was rubbish and nothing more, a grueling mix up to the feet of the delusions of the desperate. Sally wouldn't hear another word about it. She wouldn't look when the aunts insisted on pointing out that a black dog had taken to sitting out on the sidewalk every evening. She wouldn't listen when they swore the dog always pointed its face to the sky whenever Michael approached, and that it howled at the sight of him and quickly backed away from his shadow, tail between its legs. In spite of Sally's admonition, the aunts placed Myrtle beneath Michael's pillow and urged him to bathe with holly and a bar of their special black soap. Into his jacket pocket, they slipped the foot of a rabbit they had once caught eating their lettuce. Do you think that's Maggie? Do you think they cut off
Oh,
Maggie's foot?
Maggie.
Oh my
Maybe. I
god.
just read
Okay,
that
so if you
passage.
guys so if you guys read the Rules of Magic, you know that Maggie is their Owen's
Cousin.
who was kind of like trying to denounce their family name,
Mm-hmm.
and she ended up she ended up losing her power because she didn't want to own who she was, and she ended up turning herself into a rabbit. So I'm wondering if
Oh,
this is the
Maggie.
rabbit if they cut off Maggie's foot. Oh
They
my
couldn't be
god.
that cruel.
Yeah,
I
you don't
don't
think?
know.
I don't
Who
know.
knows?
They stick doves with
That's
pins.
true. Oh, the other thing I was thinking is like the importance of like in their magic.
Uh-huh.
Pins,
Uh-huh.
both spells that they're doing.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead, keep reading.
So they mixed rosemary into his breakfast cereal, lavender into his nightly cup of tea. Still, they heard the beetle in the dining room. Finally, they said a prayer backward, but of course, that had consequences of its own.
Mm.
Soon, everyone in the house came down with the flu and insomnia and a rash that wouldn't go away for weeks, not even when a mixture of calamine and balm of Gilead was applied to the skin. By the end of winter, Carly and Antonia had begun crying whenever their father tried to leave the room. The aunts explained to Sally that no one who was doomed could hear the sound of the Deathwatch Beetle, and this was
Wow.
why, yeah, it says this was why Michael insisted that nothing could possibly go wrong. All the same, he must have known something. He stopped wearing a watch and set back all the clocks. Then, when the ticking grew louder, he pulled down all the shades in the house and kept them drawn against the sun and the moon, as if that could stop time, as if anything could. So, do you think he started hearing it? It
Oh,
sounds
and
like
just didn't
he's,
want to say, like,
yeah,
if somebody gets sick, sometimes they don't tell anybody right away. Like they don't.
yeah.
So we
So
don't
that
know.
that kind of makes sense because in the last book where Jet kind of hears it, it does kind of mention that it starts off very faint, so then you
Mm.
don't hear it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it gets so loud that it becomes unbearable.
Mm-hmm.
But it still doesn't make sense, like in the first book, how they say those who are doomed to die don't hear the sound of the Deathwatch
Right.
Beetle. So it still kind
Right.
of doesn't make sense.
I appreciate you reading us the passage. I'm glad you did because it's a very important turn.
Yeah,
Plot point in the book.
yeah, and I also kind of missed the whole bit about the rabbit foot. I missed that complete
Yeah.
part. I didn't put two and two together until I read it just now, but I think that's so funny. I'm wondering if that's Maggie.
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine? They cut
We
off her
should
foot.
God dang, I'm getting so many ideas. I gotta put them on our topics list.
Yeah,
All right, and
yeah.
cut.
Throw them on.
But like the importance of like owning yourself. So and like Maggie's story because it does have a little bit. It has at least 2 paragraphs on her backstory. Like Maggie the rabbit.
Yeah, we'll
Anyway,
have to do a whole episode on her too.
yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to like skim through this and see if there's anything else. Do you want me to finish the passage about Michael?
No, that's good. So I do
Okay.
want to say like her her taking the hammer to the floor. You did that story, right? Yeah, that was the one I talked about last time. That was like block number 4 in your emoji story was her ripping up the floor in search of this
The beetle.
beetle. And
Yeah.
there was like a inconsistency that was listed, but I always saw it a certain way. So when she's going at the floor, the inconsistency was like if you look at the one scene, her nails are natural, and then when she slams her hand on the floor, her nails are red. But I'm
I
like,
never
they're not
noticed that.
red. Like the light is shining through her skin, like the way it's shot. I'm like, her nails aren't red. It's the way the light's hitting them. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that was always something that bothered me. I was like,
I never noticed that before. I'll have to go back and watch that.
no, yeah. Who's gonna clean up that mess? And do you think she sold the house that way, or do you think she?
Right? Yeah, I always wondered like how the hell she cleaned all that up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now my mind's going like, oh, what else can we pull apart about that scene?
I will say that the sound that they have in the movie is not the actual sound of a real Deathwatch beetle.
Really, you
Yeah.
linked what the sound was, right? Are we gonna share that in
Yeah,
our show notes below?
yeah, we can also talk about that a little more when we come back. I think now's a
That
good
sounds good.
time to take a break. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I could go use a potty break. I
Same.
will be right back after this quick break to talk to you about all of the lore, superstitions, magical properties, and even some scientific facts about our Deathwatch Beetle.
We'll be right back. Hey, we're the Stinas, and you're listening to Magnolia Street Podcast. We are back. Thanks so much for sticking around. And if you heard us in that first segment, you saw us deep dive a little bit on the whole backstory of the Deathwatch Beetle in the movie and in the books. And we found a little bit of about Maggie. We think, right? We went.
I think there's a possibility of an extra episode in the future.
I have a little bit of a stupid joke. You're gonna hate me for it.
Go on.
But I was thinking like we really went down the rabbit hole in
Oh,
that first part, but we went down the Maggie hole because she's a rabbit.
Okay, my mind went somewhere else. I'll stay away from Maggie's holes. Thank you. Thank you.
You.
Ooh,
Okay.
yuck, 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 yuck. Thanks, guys, for coming back. We're going to keep on with our little tradition here, and we're going to do a little Oracle card pull. Well, we're not going to do it so much as a pull today because there is a Deathwatch Beetle card in the deck. Is that right?
Yeah, this is the Inner Witch Oracle, 2nd edition by Grounded by the Moon. Check him out on Instagram. He's probably going to be like, thanks, guys, for all of this traffic.
Promotion, yeah. Whom we hope to interview at some point because
oh, yes.
their artistic process.
Yeah, definitely. I did a whole YouTube video on a review of this deck, pretty comprehensive
Awesome.
review. So we'll leave that in the show notes before if you guys want to do a little flip through of the deck with me. I show you all the cards and stuff like that. But today we want to focus on the Deathwatch Beetle. And there is a little excerpt in his little guidebook that comes with the deck that kind of says, I guess, his interpretation of the Deathwatch Beetle, what it means, and some proactive steps you can take to harness the power of the Deathwatch Beetle. On this card, the keyword that he has on it is fear, and I think that says a lot because the Deathwatch Beetle in the books and in the movie, it's feared, right? It's a sign of death. And another word that he includes in this is insecurity. Let me just read what it says about the card.
Go ahead.
So it says, whatever you are stressing about, whatever is on your mind, whatever the matter is, know that you do not need to worry. A little different than the book. Right?
Yeah, really. Like, you better close the curtains.
You better fucking worry. So things are not as they seem. Rise above fear and see what is actually in front of you. You know the truth. Take comfort and solace in that. Fear feeds on your insecurities. Don't give in to these negative and unnecessary energies. They have no benefit to you. If you are having trouble and wish to deepen your connection to the card, try the following. And here's a little bit of spell work he includes, which I love about this deck because he includes these little short and sweet spells that you can just do to kind of get into the energy of the card. And so he says, infuse a black candle with your fears and anxieties. Focus your energy or even inscribe it. Light this candle, and as it burns, release all of your worries, fears, and insecurities. And the mantra that he has on this card is, I release my fears.
Do you do any candle magic?
I've done it in the past. Wait, do you have something playing in the background?
No. What are you hearing?
Do you hear that?
No. Are you hearing ghosts?
No. Oh my God. I guess my ear turned on Facebook and somebody's Facebook or turned on somebody's Instagram live on in the background. Hold on.
That would be terrifying. I'm glad you're all right.
That scared the hell out of me. I hope you guys didn't hear that on the other.
Oh, I hope we can include that. Free publicity for whoever that Instagrammer
I
is.
thought somebody was intercepting our call. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on?
Whoa.
So to go back to your question, do I do any candle magic? I have done it in the past. I have. Do you?
Not as of late. I did one big one, but it's usually not what I turn to. If I do, like, I don't typically like anoint candle or do anything like that just because it's not my forte. But the one thing I did this past year worked real well. It was.
What'd you do?
Powerful.
What'd you do?
I'm not gonna say it on here because I don't know if so and so is gonna be listening.
Well, I mean, you don't have to say about who, but like generally, what was the work based around?
I did a cord cutting, so it's a little thing. People might have seen it on like TikTok, but you take 2 candles and you can. How I did it was I inscribed on each candle, one represented me and one represented another person. You can use thorn. You can use. I used a nail, like an iron nail, and then you take a string of some kind and you tie them together. You stand them up facing each other, and then you have a string between them, and you light each candle, and it's a form of cord cutting. But that's what I did this past year, and golly,
it worked.
Well, yeah,
Nice.
I did. Did you? Yeah.
Did you do this outside, by the way? Because I've seen some people on TikTok doing that in the house, and it looks so dangerous. I'm like, you're gonna set your house on fire.
No, so I took a time lapse of it actually because I wanted to go back and kind of meditate on it. And while I was doing it, so I forget what the sequence was. I knew I wanted to do this thing. It didn't start raining yet, but as I was starting to do the spell, the winds picked up and the rain started. It was raining the whole time. And it was one of those chime candles. So those take like 40 minutes, 30 minutes
Yeah.
to burn down.
Yeah.
So it burnt all the way down and like the whole spiel happened. And I was like, shit, oh, I know what I need to do is go out and get rainwater and do this, this, and this. And by the time I needed to go out and get rainwater, the rain stopped and the jar I had left outside was filled. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, it's like the
Wow.
universe is hanging out with me. So that was pretty cool.
That is
So
cool.
then I used that rainwater in like a binding to put that picture of the person. I put them in like a Ziploc with the storm water, and I put it in the freezer.
Nancy. I bind
It's
you from
exactly
doing
what I
harm.
did.
Harm against
Yeah,
other people and harm against
exactly.
the most recent candle magic that I can think of that I've done is in my Patreon group. I think it was like last fall sometime. I think it was around the equinox, the autumnal equinox last year, if
Oh,
I remember
wow.
if I remember correctly. We did like sigil magic with like a green. We all had a green
I love
candle.
that.
We came up with this sigil that kind of represented every aspect of our life as a whole. And then we kind of like rated those things on a scale of like 1 to 10. And then
Hmm.
we had to like connect the dots. And
Oh,
then
wild.
with those dots connected, it created like some kind of shape.
Do you still have yours?
I do.
You have to show me sometime. Doesn't have to be this moment.
I think it's in my drawer back there. But yeah, so we inscribed these signs onto our green candle. This candle was supposed to symbolize, I guess, balance in our lives. So anywhere that we were lacking in that specific area of our life, the sigil on the candle was supposed to enhance and increase
Oh,
balance, to kind of also symbolize the equinox, because the equinox is like, the
all
balance
about
between
balance.
the light and the dark. So it was a really cool and visual way to kind of represent that balance in our life. But that's the most recent candle magic I can think of that I've done.
That's awesome. I think you
Yeah.
should, if you end up editing this one, you should include this. That's really fascinating. And you can include mine because you know what I have to say is like, you're so vain. You probably think the spell is about you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you think the spell is about you, then maybe it is about you. And
Maybe it is, maybe it
it
isn't.
isn't. We're not saying any names, so we're good.
Okay, we're gonna lay down some scientific facts for everybody, and
Yeah.
along with those scientific facts
Yeah,
come
Christina,
a lot
give
of
us
Latin
the
names.
science. Give us the science.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best. Latin is not for me, but I tried to write
Listen,
it out
I have an
phonetically.
idea. If you can't figure out how to say the Latin word, just go with Wingardium Leviosa, and we're good.
Okay. So the Deathwatch Beetle is Xestobium. Nope.
We're starting off on a really good foot here.
Why the hell did it add an extra I? Okay, Xestobium, but it's spelled Xestr. Excuse me, Xesto. Xestobium.
Wait,
Xestobium.
when you start a word with X, isn't it usually pronounced like a Z? Like Xestobium?
Yep. Xestobium. Yep,
Yeah.
there we go.
Xestobium Leviosa.
Roy for Valor. Roy for Valor.
Wait,
Rufovillosum.
do you want
Roy
me to
for
read?
Voliosum. Xestobium roifoliosum. Boom.
Roifovillosum.
Got it. That last one. Just keep all of it in though.
But what the fuck does that mean?
Xestobium roifoliosum is a species of wood-boring beetle that sometimes infest the structural timbers of old buildings. The adult beetle is brown and it measures on average about 7 millimeters or 0.3 inches long. So, dude, I go off of what the Deathwatch beetle looks like in the movie, whether that is actually one or not. But in California, they have beetles that look a lot like that they call their stink bugs. I don't know about you, but East Coast stink bugs look like the shield, brown shield.
You know what stink bugs kind of look like? They kind of look like, well, lanternflies are not a problem where you are, Christina, right? But in New Jersey, they're pretty much rampant. Like
Yeah, it's
These
an
are everywhere.
infestation, isn't it?
And they kind of look very similar, except the lanternfly is like red and spotted, but it's kind of
Mhm.
like the same kind of like shield kind of back.
Yeah,
Um,
so I need to look up a picture of this Deathwatch beetle because I was like, is that really what it looks like? And the ones that have popped up, they're kind of cute. Like they look fuzzy. They're kind of like fuzzy looking.
they don't look as, I guess, attractive as it does in the movie. I don't know what kind of beetle they use in the movie, but the actual Deathwatch beetle, I think it looks a little uglier than the one that they used in the movie. And I can see why they were like, yeah, we're not going to use a real Deathwatch beetle in the movie because this shit looks
Yeah.
ugly as hell.
Yes.
They had to kind of like glorify it or glamorize it a little bit for
Mhm.
Hollywood,
Yep.
so that makes sense.
Got the red carpet treatment.
Yeah.
But Deathwatch beetles are macroinvertebrates, and that is any animal lacking a backbone and large enough to see without the aid of a microscope. The Deathwatch beetle, Xestobium
Leviosa.
rufovillosum.
Just
See, I
stop.
had it
Just
and
stop
then I
trying.
lost.
Anytime that word comes back up, just skip it.
The furniture beetle is a species of beetle from the Xestobium genus. The length of their cycle, the life cycle, depends on their habitat and their nutrition. The time required for their larva to evolve into an adult can be as short as 1 year to 13 years. Does that sound right?
That's a long time.
After evolving as an adult, they emerge from the holes made in the wood, and whenever they come out, it speeds up the decaying of the timber and leaves holes in the wood around the size of, it says 3 to 4 millimeters, which that's metrics, right? So I don't.
Yeah, I
It's
don't know.
0.1 to 0.2 inches.
Well, I guess that kind of does make sense because there's a certain kind of cicada that it lays dormant like
Mm,
every 17 years it comes up from the
yeah.
ground and then they just friggin' swarm your entire neighborhood
Mhm.
like the biblical locusts. Like I remember we had a cicada infestation some years ago and it was horrible. They were everywhere. I was batting them off with my purse like I was like
Yeah.
getting them. It was very scary. But I guess that kind of makes sense. Maybe some insect species do that whole dormant thing and
Yeah.
then pop up out of nowhere after many,
Yeah,
many years.
so between 1 and 13 years is when they are fully matured. Do you want me to keep going? There's a
Yeah.
really cool factor at the bottom here. We're gonna scoot on to the feeding and reproduction of
Okay.
Deathwatch beetle.
Do you
Xylophagus
want
larva.
I like that word,
I do too.
xylophagus.
Xylophagus larva, which is very soft, bores it through wood as it feeds on it. Inside the larva's alimentary canal are pockets of yeast that are very important in helping the larva to be able to digest the cellulose it feeds on. The mother Deathwatch beetle, ooh, that's like a good band name. Mother Deathwatch. That reminds me of, like,
It's a metal band.
I was gonna say, do you watch Death Clock?
No.
Okay. The mother Deathwatch beetle, on the other hand, has 2 receptacles of yeast that are located around its orifice. Orifice?
Orifice.
That's just orifice? Okay, I read
Yeah. But you made it French. I like it.
Let me try to read through my
Just
tears.
yeah.
This is where she lays her eggs. Uh, um,
We're gonna have to cut this. No, just leave it.
Dang
Just leave it. It's fine.
I'm
It's
gonna
fine.
just leave it. But I can't see, so give me 1 second.
Your face is bright red.
I know, because I'm so hot. I'm so hot.
Oh,
All right.
whew. Okay, we're gonna have fun editing this one.
Woo.
All right, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good.
All right. We had to collect ourselves from a giggle. All right. We're talking about the mother Deathwatch beetle. So this is where she lays her eggs from meaning
Sorry.
Stop it. I'm gonna just skip that. I'm gonna skip that sentence. The reason for
I had
this
too
is
much
that
coffee this morning.
the
My
reason
coffee is giving me the giggles. What's in this coffee? Okay,
hot.
go do it. I'm gonna put my hand over my face so you can't see me.
This is where she lays her eggs, for meaning that each egg is laid with yeast clinging onto the shell. The reason for this is that the larva nibbles its way out of the shell. It will swallow some of the yeast, which will therefore help in the digestion of the cellulose it feeds on. Okay, this is also super cool, super metal. So the name of this beetle, I guess they're referring to the mother Deathwatch beetle, is called a Coleoptera.
Wait, it says it says Coleoptera. Is that a typo?
Cleo?
Is that a typo? It
It
says
might be. Hang on, let me look it
Coleoptera.
up. Okay, look. Let me go to that site real quick.
Oh my god.
You oh, girl.
Are you
Just
crying?
watch it. All right. Oh, it is Cleo. No, it's Coleoptera. It
Is
is
that it?
Coleoptera.
You called it Cleopatra. All right, it is not Cleopatra, you guys. It is Coleoptera.
Okay. Oh, this episode.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay.
The scientific name for the mother Deathwatch beetle is Coleoptera, not Cleopatra. I
Cleopatra.
read it 30 minutes ago.
Oh god.
Justina, please take us away into some superstitions so I can compose myself.
Compose yourself. Okay. So, according to superstition, the sound, actually a mating call, was believed to forecast an approaching death. Its name is derived from the credence that it was often heard by the people on watch with an ill person on the verge of death. And that source comes from Britannica.com. So, I guess that's where Alice Hoffman she probably kind of deep dived into some superstition and some lore from, like, the old timey days. And she threw it in the book. Pretty cool.
Yeah, Britannica.com is legit. That's a legit source. So
Yeah.
go, Alice.
You go, Glenn. Go. Oh god. Okay. Because people in days it can't stop now. Stop now. Because
I'm gonna turn my camera off. That might help.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, there.
All right. So, because people in days gone by held vigils at the bedside of the dead or dying, the ticking became synonymous with death. Since another word for vigil is watch, hence we get death watch. As a result, some people think the beetle became a death omen. Okay, that makes sense now. In Lancashire, it's spelled death if the beetle only tapped 3 times. Some people thought the ticking was that of time itself, specifically how much the dying person had left, or how much time they had left. Others thought it was the Grim Reaper tapping his fingers while he waited. Oh my god, that gives me chills.
I love that.
Isn't it? That's so creepy.
I love that.
A superstition that came across with settlers from Europe established itself here in the eastern U.S. It involved death and a bug.
Well, let's just get that one out of there.
Yeah, that was very generic. Okay.
Yeah.
So back in the day, people did not die in hospitals, but rather in their own beds, and it became a tradition to watch over the dying until the end, and this became known as the death watch or vigil. During this time, the house was kept very quiet, with limited activity and conversations held in a whisper. With the house this still, a tapping sound could often be heard that seemed to come from all over the house and occurred often enough that the sound became synonymous with impending death, and superstitions arose as a result.
So the houses are just falling apart. They're just falling down, and all their wood is rotting, and their beetles are infesting their woodwork.
Yeah, and they're here.
Like.
Yeah, and they're over here just like, oh my god, it's the ticking because this person's gonna die. No, you have
you need to call a contractor.
You need to call an exterminator.
Yeah.
Another was that it was the sound of time ticking off the dying person's last moments. Records of the phenomenon date back to the 17th century, so it was a spooky occurrence that's been around for a while, and that source is from middlesbroughnews.com.
So a lot of our information, we're gonna link all of those sites in the show notes below. We tried to put them in as we went along with whatever we were reading from, but this kind of got extensive, so we're just gonna put them all at the bottom. And if you guys are part of our Patreon, you will get these notes. So if it's something you're interested in, it's yours. So you had mentioned the 17th century, so that kind of is a good segue into where the Deathwatch beetle pops up in literature and pop culture. And one of our first entries here is that it pops up in the 1843 short story, The Telltale Heart.
One of my favorites.
Have you ever been to his, don't they do like a big tour?
Me and my husband, we went on a road trip. We visited Williamsburg, Virginia, and we had to drive through Richmond to get there. It's only about, I want to say maybe an hour away, and Richmond was one of our stops. And we stopped in this place called the Fan District because it's kind of like shaped like a fan on the map. And it's like a really artsy, cool town. And we stopped there. We loved it, and we were always like, we want to go back. Let's just do a Richmond trip alone.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I watched this couple on YouTube called the Grim Life Collective, and they
is that just you and Avi's other name, because that could be your other
The
names.
Grimlight, right? The Grimlight
Yeah.
Collective. But we watched this couple on YouTube, and they actually visited. They do a lot of like haunted sites, and they visit a lot of haunted places in Hollywood and the South and stuff like that. But they did a stint in Richmond, Virginia, and they actually went to the Edgar Allan Poe Museum. So that's in Richmond, and I actually didn't know that that was in Richmond until I saw that on their channel, and I was like, oh my god, we were in Richmond! Like, why didn't we know this was there? So next time we roll through Richmond, we're definitely going to make it a point to stop at the Edgar Allan Poe Museum.
That's sweet. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes.
We will.
Yeah. So in the Telltale Heart, there's no actual beetle, but the sound, the continuous maddening of the sound, I guess, was, some people think that this was the concept that inspired Edgar Allan Poe. And it's a man by the name of John E. Reilly, not John C. Reilly, drew a parallel between the apparent ticking of the dead man's heart and the sound of Deathwatch Beetle.
Yeah, I'm like a combination between Fergie and Jesus. Is that what he said? Is that what he said in Step Brothers?
Oh. Oh man.
John C.
Fergie and
Reilly.
This episode is super giggly. We'll really try
Oh my
to
God.
cut out a lot of the shouting, but
Just leave it in.
it's not. We're talking about death, man. This should not be as funny, but it is.
Oh my God. Well, you gotta laugh about it. It's a part of
Yeah.
life, and it can be very foreboding, but you gotta make some jokes.
When you get to worry, all you have to do is sing. So saith
There you
a
go.
song lyric whose artist I forget right now. But in 1787, the Beetle was included in a 3-page inventory written by a man named Francis Gross. He was an English antiquary, a draughtsman, and a lexicographer,
What is
which
a
I
lexicographer?
had to look up. I linked it here, so we're gonna look up
All right.
what a lexicographer is. Is the study of lexicons. Okay, we have to go there to that.
That
link now.
explains a lot.
And is divided into 2 separate academic disciplines. Practical lexicography is the art or crafting of compiling. Did you see my lights in my room?
Yeah, what the hell?
Dude,
is that?
that Hurricane Ian is blowing through.
Oh
Is
no.
the art or crafting of compiling, writing, and editing dictionaries. And then there's theoretical
Oh.
lexiconography, and that is the scholarly study of semantics. We're
Got
gonna just
it.
stop right there.
That's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself.
Yeah. However, according to Wikipedia, the all-knowing Wikipedia, is more likely that it was like the metronomic ticking of, this is their theory, that it was the metronomic ticking of a book louse, which
Mm.
also had to look up. So when you get deloused, they're taking care of lice. So it's a book lice. Just nasty. Yeah. Ew. Rather than it being the grouping of 6 to 8 taps made by the Deathwatch Beetle. Another reference is by John Keats. He's an English poet known for his poem Ode to the Nightingale. Even mentioned the Deathwatch tick in his 1818 poem Endymion. I
think it's Endymion.
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 Endymion. Within ye hear no sound, no loud, as when on Captain Bear the Deathwatch tick is stifled. How's that? Was that good?
That was dramatic. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Again, it's going to pop up in 1876 in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Next, should I do that accent again?
Yes, please.
Or next, the ghastly ticking of the death watch in the wall at the bed's head made Tom shudder. It meant that somebody's days were numbered.
Ooh.
Did you like how I switched that up a little bit? If I do a little accent, then it gives me more time to read the words ahead and not fuck them up. So we also have
Beatrix Potter.
Yes, Beatrix Potter, not associated with Mr. Harry Potter. She is the author of Peter Rabbit. And she references this beetle in her children's book, The Tailor of Gloucestershire.
Gloucester. I think it's Gloucester.
Yeah. I really think I have a form of dyslexia. And this was written in 1901, published in 1903, when it says, when the mice under the teacups start up, a chorus of little tappings, all sounding together and answering no other, like watch beetles, and an old worm-eaten window shutter. Fuck me.
Lovely.
In Dorothy L. Sayers' Gaudy Night, Chapter 17, the mechanisms of the ticking of the Deathwatch Beetle is discussed. It is compared to the clicking sound made by the ill-fated hard shirt front.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. Oh my gosh. So guys, I'm going to throw some poetry at you. So hang tight.
Oh God. Are you going to do it in an old English accent, please?
All right. We're getting to present day. So in 1988, Linda Paston wrote a poem entitled The Deathwatch Beetle. So I think it's about, when I looked it up, this is edited. I think it was like 6 verses. So this is verse, I think I did number 4 and 5. It says, all right. Well, this is 1988. I can't do old English.
Yeah, oh, okay.
It says, the Deathwatch Beetle earned its name not from the ugliness or our terror of insects, but simply because of the sound it makes ticking. When your spirit perfects itself, will it escape out of a nostril or through the spiral passage of an ear? Or is it even now battering against your thin skull, wild to get through? Blood brother to the crimson bird?
That's really ominous.
It is, yeah.
We will
So,
link that entire poem in the show notes down below. I want to go read the whole thing now. I've never
yeah,
heard of this
girl.
poem.
Then I also found it mentioned in a advanced D&D site, the Deathwatch Beetle. There's a whole like beetle section. So I think they separated it into Deathwatch Beetle,
Do you mean
Stink Beetle.
D&D as far as Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes,
Oh
ma'am.
shit.
Yeah.
It's a plot point in Dungeons and Dragons?
Dude, I don't know. I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm going to tell you about it. I'm going to tell you that
Tell
it's
us.
armor class 3. Its special attack is the death rattle, and its special defense is camouflage. So, which
Wow.
brings us to our topic today, 1995. It is
Yeah.
in Alice Hoffman's book, Practical Magic. There we go.
Yeah,
How's that?
she basically uses it as an omen of death, and the main character hears it shortly before their husband dies, which we've already discussed a million times over in this podcast. But that's a pretty cool, extensive kind of trail back to the beginnings of time.
Dude, thanks for sticking that out. That was rough.
That was rough. We had the giggles. We're sorry, you guys.
For somebody, who is sick, it's Mercury in retrograde. I don't have my glasses on, and I think I'm dyslexic. Like, she's let me do the same paragraphs over and over, so much thanks.
Are you kidding me? This is like prime entertainment right here.
Good, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, so I think we're going to take a quick short little break here, and when we come back, we will talk a little bit more about beetle magical properties and some of the things that the beetle symbolizes. And what else do we have on this list? Oh, beetles in dreams.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool one. All right, we'll be right back. You're listening to Magnolia Street Podcast. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. We are back.
All right, we're going to dive into some magical properties. So we really kind of pinpointed the Deathwatch Beetle, but I think now we're going to just do more generalized beetle lore.
Yeah, beetles are, I guess, I think they command a lot of respect from some cultures, right?
Yeah, it sounds like they've been a solid symbol in a lot of different cultures for a long time, for many different things. So we're going to go over those.
Yeah, I found a cool little bit on their magical properties, I guess, if you're planning on using it in your magic. This comes from aminoapps.com/c/the witch's circle. And I think that's a site where different users can pop on and post like their different kinds of magical findings, magical workings. I guess you can compare it to kind of like a digital working grimoire, like a collaborative grimoire, if that's
cool.
if I'm understanding this site correctly anyway. But this is what I found on there as far as the magical properties of the beetle. And the author is Nixie Vale. And Nixie says, the beetle symbolizes strength, industry, structure, persistence, creativity, recycling, cleanliness, adaptation, community, family, uniqueness, metamorphosis, transformation, and resourcefulness. So some of, I guess, the themes that kind of run throughout the whole concept of the beetle is their strength in numbers, which associates with the themes of community, the value of having roots, which associates with the themes of family, the importance of pragmatism and strategy when solving problems, which associates with themes of adaptation, being mindful about what we are putting out into the environment, which associates with themes of recycling, taking stock of thoughts, feelings, or attitudes that no longer serve us, which associate with themes of thoughtfulness, and the importance of accepting that changes happen and surrendering to these transitions, which coincides with themes of transformation and metamorphosis. So those are just some of the magical properties that Nixie Vale posted on that website, which we will link in the show notes down below.
Yeah.
And yeah,
This
now
is
we're gonna
great. We don't think of we think of a beetle as a pest most of the time, and I know there are certain
yeah.
people who keep beetles as pets, but most of the time not so much. But
Yeah.
they're real important to the ecosystem and to different societies around the world for many Ian.
Yeah.
Ian Ian
Many
Ian's knocking on my window.
many hurricane eons ago.
Good one. Good one.
Beetles hold a special meaning for the ancient Egyptians. And this goes into the whole, I guess, scarab symbolism, which is especially popular and even holds a special religious meaning to them. The beetle meaning is typically related to the sun god for most Egyptians. Up until the late 17th century, Europeans believed beetles and other bugs to spontaneously generate from dead and decaying matter. For this reason, the black beetle in the house, it meant that it was believed to be death or even spirits in the house. Scarab beetle meanings and meanings of black beetles from ancient Egypt to Congo was creation, renewal, and rebirth. And I always like, I think
Wow.
we've talked about this before when we were researching this, Christina. We were talking about the whole scarab concept in The Mummy, the movie. Do you remember that movie? Didn't it
Do I
come out
remember
of his
the movie?
didn't it come out of his face?
Oh, dude, you see it like crawl up his arm and then into his abdomen, and it does the whole like up his neck, and he's like comes. Oh, yeah. That.
Wait, I also have to mention that guy is also Billy Zane.
What are you talking about?
Remember in the first episode, we were like, who's that guy from Hocus Pocus, Billy Butcherson? You were like, wait, you mean Billy Zane? No, that's the guy from Titanic and now The Mummy. So,
oh my gosh.
We'll have to get Billy Zane on this show and just.
Oh my gosh. Could we please we'll just take him to dinner?
So, Native American symbolism. Native Americans were scared of woodland insects, beetles, and other bugs as they caused diseases. But in some healing practices, the native healers would blow tobacco smoke in the ears to drive out beetles and woodland insects, as they supposedly dried out the brain and led to insanity. And that's something like I never really thought about before. Like Native Americans who were living in wooded areas, like I guess that would have been like a really serious threat, like bugs crawling in the ear. That's something that like I never even thought about before. But
yeah, that's what we're doing. This podcast is like we get to learn all kinds of new things,
finding out so much. So for the Native Americans, killing beetles was considered an ill omen. Bugs were messengers about sex and also about the harvest each year. If a bug-like beetle was seen in the home, it was considered a sign of fertility. Bees, June bugs, and beetles were viewed as symbols of protection, love, and fertility.
So it's interesting that they were scared of them because it caused disease. Where did you just read that?
Oh, in the first section under
yeah.
Native American symbolism.
Yeah, they were considered disease, and they were kind of scared of them, but it was also they didn't want to kill them. Like it was an ill omen to kill them, so they had to just live harmoniously together.
It was like a catch-22.
Yeah. And so some Eastern symbolism in Japan, beetles are kept as pets. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
See, I knew people. Okay, prehistoric man of 10,000 to 20,000 years ago had beetle-shaped pendants. The Chinese believe that insects like beetles are excited and impregnated by the wind.
Interesting.
Okay, we're gonna go with it.
That's
beetles,
an interesting concept.
Yeah, beetles or scarabaeus.
I guess
Scarabaeus.
Yeah. Is that
also
Latin word?
Hey, got another one thrown at us. Is also a Chinese symbol of creation, resurrection, or new life.
Christianity symbolism. Beetles started being used in medicine. You could find prescriptions like take a beetle, cut off its head, put it into a vat of snakes, cook the head and wings, and boil everything. Give it as a drink to people who are sick. Put
it into the fat of snakes.
Yeah, and you know what I find very interesting is that this is under Christianity symbolism, but that sounds very witchy to me.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, you sick? We're going to bloodlet. You sick? We're going to do an enema, kind of thing.
In Leviticus, I guess 11:20-22, which is the verse, right?
Yeah, chapter 11, verse 20
I'm
to
a
22.
horrible Catholic
bad
school
Catholic.
student. I never listen, okay, I never paid attention because it just wasn't my vibe. But
nope.
In Leviticus, the beetle is mentioned with the grasshopper and the bald locust, all beetles after their kind. But experts now say that this entry is erroneous. So click beetles do not have the same type of jumping energy.
So
and
they were.
King.
So sorry. Go ahead. So they were getting roped in with the it sounds like they were getting roped in with the grasshopper, and the
yeah.
locust. Got it. Okay. But it's like,
Yeah.
no. All right.
It's different.
Mhm.
And the New King James Bible overcame these mistakes and properly corrected them to crickets to describe the leaping insects of Leviticus.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to go for Celtic symbolism. I don't know how I keep getting the ones with the crazy words, but we're going to do our best. So in Celtic symbolism, beetles are a picture of holy benevolence and grace in some Celtic legends, and some not so much. A European rove beetle is commonly known as the devil's coach horse.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Some of this I'm reading for the first time. It is a long black beetle that is beneficial to farmers as it consumes the wire worms that harm crops. The name comes due to the stance that it takes when confronted or threatened. It raises its tail in a manner similar to the scorpion stance when it wants to attack. In Irish folktales, there's a story about a beetle where it is described as the devil incarnate. The Irish folktale also mentions that there is only one way to kill this beetle, which is also called the Daol. Daol. How would you pronounce that one?
Dale?
Dale, the Irish word for devil, and that is
Kill it with
using
fire.
Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. Or don't, because the Native Americans will have a heart attack. They
Yeah,
deem it very bad luck to do that.
yeah. For any object used to crush the Dale, thumb, stone, or boot will lead to mortal injury. So you're only allowed to use fire. No crushing. No crushing.
Right, yeah.
To the one attempting to kill the Dale. In various European countries until the time of the ancient Greeks, common door beetles, DOR beetles, and dung beetles came to be associated with the devil. In Celtic witchcraft and rituals, the scarab beetle's spiritual meaning is very deep because it miraculously hatches itself out of dung, creating life out of nothing.
Creating
That's cool.
life out of shit.
Yeah, which is pretty accurate.
I know, it is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I know. So, beetle African symbolism. It is said that some West African women still raise beetles, feed them on datura. Actually, that's a poisonous plant, right? Also known as the devil's trumpet.
Yeah, those trumpet flowers that hang upside down. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, and then they mix the beetle feces within the food to eliminate unnecessary husbands or unfaithful lovers.
Cool.
So that is kind of, I'm wondering if Alice Hoffman took from this little bit of African symbolism, because that's kind of like, killing off husbands
that's so neat.
That's interesting. So that kind of coincides with the whole practical magic concepts and themes. In ancient Egypt, the scarab beetle was seen as a potent solar symbol and an attractor of good fortune. And also Egyptians believed that the scarab was a symbol of life beyond the grave. That appears to have arisen from observations of beetles emerging from the ball of dung in which they lay their eggs.
There you go.
Yeah, and this beetle was the sky god, and the disc held its eggs. Therefore, Egyptians believed that the sun was the offspring of the scarab beetle. So there is a connection between the beetle and the sun, which is very neat.
Cool. So these, there was a bit, most of this is taken from a website called worldbirds.com/beetle symbolism. And they also had an interpretation of what beetles mean in dreams. But I pulled out two of my books from my shelf. Yeah. So before I get to that, let me read this little bit. So if you are having dreams about beetles, it says, since scarab beetles are a symbol of the human soul, dreaming of a scarab beetle can also mean that a past loved one is trying to communicate with you.
Ooh.
That's interesting. I never thought of the beetle as like a
messenger.
Can transition, between the two worlds as a messenger. So the one book that I have is called The Dream Dictionary from A to Z by Teresa Chung. And it says, to see a beetle in your dreams indicates that some destructive influences may be at work in your waking life. You may also feel that your values and beliefs are being compromised. If you see a scarab beetle, this means you are concentrating on your ability to survive and adapt to change. It may also represent anxiousness about death and aging.
Interesting.
The other book I have is called The Ultimate Dictionary of Dream Language by Brasidia Ryan.
Ryan.
I like this one. You may enjoy a speedy and profitable reunion with somebody special. It is also important to get a checkup to rule out anemia.
What?
Get that anemia checked out.
Or eat your steak, right? That's very high in what is iron? Yeah, that's lack of iron, right? Iron deficiency is anemia.
If you dream about a dung beetle supposedly created out of nothing but bodily waste and manure. Therefore, dreaming of one might mean that you need to trust in your creativity and inner wisdom and power.
I like that. I love
Boom.
all those dream interpretations.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
I'll keep those 2 books in mind for other topics we do, because I think that's a
yeah,
fun little insert.
it
Cool.
is. Yeah. And like I said, I think we're gonna do another whole episode on the Deathwatch Beetle down the line.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Awesome.
So, beetles as omens. From symbols of death to creation to the human soul, the beetle encounters meaning varies. That doesn't. Am I having
It's
a
meaning the
stroke?
Beatles meaning varies, I guess.
The beetle's meaning varies from culture to culture. A beetle flying in through the window is a good omen.
Oh.
In Maryland, a black beetle, meaning if it flies into your room, is impending sickness or even death. In England, it is considered unlucky to kill a beetle. And again, we touch on the Egyptians. They worship the scarab beetle as a symbol of sunlight and regeneration. Christians believe that beetles are Christ himself, owing to their ability to turn impure into pure. If you accidentally kill a beetle, it is sure to rain. I've never heard of that one.
Ooh, cool.
It is very unlucky to trample a beetle, and Japanese believe that certain species of beetle like to gouge out human eyes. That is horrible. In Ireland, there is a beetle called the Coffin Cutter, which is symbolic of the grave, death, and purgatory. That's
Coffin Cutter.
badass. I love
Yeah.
that Coffin
Yeah.
Cutter. Old German belief is that stag beetles are diabolic. In Ireland, almost all species of beetles have considered to be the devil reincarnate. Seeing a beetle can bring on a rainstorm the next day, or in Gloucester, England, the rain beetle's death is symbolic of a rainstorm. The ticking of a clock beetle is a terrible omen of death. In the olden days, beetles were crushed to make medicines for treating diseases of the throat and ear.
Awesome.
Interesting.
So I forgot to mention that that the author of this name is Garth C. Clifford. Garth! And this is from worldbirds.com, which I mentioned, but I wanted to make sure I got his name in there. Garth. Okay.
Nice. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the beetle as a spirit animal?
Sure. And I think this goes as far as like totem animal. If it's something you connect, if it's an animal species, because I don't want to step on any cultural toes, but if it's an animal you connect with. If a beetle shows up as your animal, know that you have the creativity and power to make the best from waste. So you can make the good out of shit. You are a self-respecting individual, very calm, loyal, steady, and still. You have the ability to act fast and jump up to new opportunities and chances, exactly like the beetles do when they see dung. You also share a special relationship with the sun, just like the scarab and dung beetles are how they are closely linked with the sun, light, and renewal. So go ahead, spend time in the early morning soaking up the morning sun.
While you're listening to the Beatles sing "Here Comes the Sun,"
and he is part of a band called Coffin Cutter. Because the beetle seems to create.
That's my new metal band.
I just want to sign. Yeah, I'm gonna sign in with that name from now on to whenever we
Coffin
zoom.
Cutter.
Good. Because the beetle seems to create itself from an invisible egg in the dirt, it's also an image of Egyptian mythology for self-creation. You are a self-made person and will go far in life without having to depend on anyone. The beetle may also show up in your life in some aspect, as something that is nagging or holding you back. Use the beetle's medicine to rise up from a situation. The scarab beetle is also a symbol of the soul. Therefore, the beetle spiritual meeting may be a soul trying to connect with you. In any case, know that the spirit guides are watching over you and that you are being taken care of.
That's sweet. So Nixie Vale also said that the beetle says, "I have come to you now to remind you to take the time to say thank you for the things you have. I come to you now because you need a little structure in your life. I have come to you today to tell you that you need to center, ground, and root yourself. I come to you today to tell you that you need to stay level-headed and grounded with family matters. I have come to you today to tell you it's a good time to take stock of your thoughts, letting go of what's not working or anything negative. I come to you to remind you that taking your time and going step by step will make you swifter progress. And I was once worshipped by the ancients, and to them I represent the spirit. I come here today to tell you to pay attention to messages, especially those concerning spirituality and spiritual maturity." And the
Cool.
Beatles' greatest symbolic meaning is telling you to go with the flow of life, embracing its changes and challenges, allowing transitions to teach us the lessons we are to learn. Let the beetle impart their wisdom and experience. And Christina, I see, did you put this little bit about the Deathwatch Beetle tea?
Yeah,
Did
dude.
you
Oh my
add
gosh.
that? Oh, tell
Yeah,
us.
we
Tell
have
us.
to interview this person because they have a whole line of practical magic and style inspired teas.
Oh,
So
wow.
their Deathwatch Beetle tea. This is by Adagio, Adagio teas.
Are they on Instagram?
I don't think the teas are on Instagram. I haven't checked, but I'm gonna link everything below. But in their Deathwatch Beetle blend, it is a blend of black tea, raspberry leaves, natural pomegranate flavors, raspberry, natural cranberry flavors, green pico, and cranberries. And you steep it for at 195 degrees. Just steep it for 3 minutes, and it's a highly caffeinated mixture.
Oh my
So
God.
cool.
That is very cool. I didn't know
Yeah,
that somebody made a whole line of practical magic teas. That's so
I
cool. I'm gonna
know.
go check that out.
Yeah.
So real quick before we wrap up this episode, I just want to hit on the IMDb page for Practical Magic, where they actually explain a little more about the Deathwatch Beetle and how they used it in the movie. So the real Deathwatch Beetle, Xestobium Wingardium Leviosa,
Okay. Okay.
we'll just go with that. The real Deathwatch Beetle does indeed make a noise associated in folklore with impending death, but for cinematic purposes, this presents a problem. Because when the beetle can be heard, it cannot be seen because it will be concealed
Oh.
within its burrow in a piece of old timber or wood. So
Hmm.
in the movie we see it crawling about kind of out in the open, but and while it's ticking, but in reality, like, we wouldn't, if you heard it ticking, you wouldn't see it.
It would be
So
in the wood
it
doing
would
its thing.
be
It's not,
in,
it doesn't make that
yeah,
sound roaming
yeah,
around. It sounds
it,
like, okay,
yeah, so it would
cool.
be in the wood doing its thing. You wouldn't see it at all if it was making that sound. The sound in reality, the real sound of a real Deathwatch Beetle is more of a rapid tapping rather than the
Mm.
sound effect that they used. And it doesn't really specify what the sound effect that they used was
Hmm.
here, which I'm really interested to kind of dig a little deeper and see if we can find out what exactly kind of bug that is that they use that sound effects
Yeah.
for. Maybe we can find like a Foley artist for that movie and be like,
We're
hey,
yeah,
what's that sound?
we're gonna interview Griffin Dunn and Denise Denovi and find out the truth, like
Okay,
the
well,
production.
we're gonna put that out in the stars, in the universe. We don't
Everybody
actually
blow up their Instagrams, please.
we don't actually have, okay, don't listen to Christina. We don't actually have plans to interview either one of them, but that would be awesome to do in the future, and we will love to
Yeah.
know these answers to these burning
Yeah.
questions.
So somebody start a list now of like, hey, we need to ask them that.
Yeah.
So we can have your help later.
Yeah, I actually found on Wikipedia the sound that is actually produced by the real life Deathwatch Beetle. And
Neat.
when we hear that sound in from the real Deathwatch Beetle, it's actually to attract mates. So the
Oh.
sound is produced by knocking the head regularly on a wooden substratum. And
Oh.
we can actually include a sound right here. So let's see. I'm going to open this and hopefully you can hear the sound. If not, we'll put the sound in post. So this is what it sounds like. Ready? Do you hear that?
So it's basically him hitting his head against the wall, being like, "I wanna fuck," right?
Yeah. That's
He's
exactly what it is.
thrashing around. So it's oh Lord. Okay, cool.
Yeah. The Deathwatch Beetle in the movie kind of sounds more like I don't know, maybe a cicada, right?
Very interesting. That's so cool. I'm glad you found that sound.
Yeah. So, now I feel like I have to deep dive and kind of find out what the hell the actual
That
sound that they
sound
used
was.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I found like a whole info sheet of the Deathwatch Beetle as far as pests go. So like this site called museumpest.net, they put together this whole fact sheet about the Deathwatch Beetle, but a lot of this stuff is actually stuff that we've already discussed earlier today. So
All right.
I'm not gonna bore you guys with that. But that is all I think we have for you guys today on the Deathwatch Beetle. That was pretty extensive, more extensive than I thought we were gonna get with this.
I'm so glad, man. I'm gonna learn so many new things, and I hope I can keep it all in my brain. But this, yeah, I think this was a lot longer than we thought. But we want to know any of your questions or comments. Please let us know, or just tell us how much we suck. You can email us at
No, we
Magnolia
don't
Street
suck.
Podcast at gmail.com, and you can slide into our DMs on Instagram, also at Magnolia Street Podcast. Most of our socials are at Magnolia Street Podcast. You can find us, or if you'd like to drop us a line that it would be played on maybe an upcoming episode, you can send us an actual voice message, and we will put that link below. But you can also find that voice message link if you go to our Instagram. There's a thing called Koji, and it's It has all of our links right there. But I think you have to be a part of Anchor, and it's free. So if you want to send us a voice message, just go to anchor.fm.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and to access any of our bonus content, you can check us out at patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast, where we offer a variety of tiers. You guys can support us and get all this extra bonus content. And also, you will get access to our patron-only polls, where you can vote on what topics we will cover on the show next. And also access all of our show notes in their entirety. So after each episode, we'll post our notes to our Patreon page with sources and links. So we did all the research, so you don't have to.
Yeah, really. You also get access to like our music catalog of all the songs we are trying to put out there that are Practical Magic inspired. So you
Yeah,
get to be a part of that.
nothing is up there yet, but as we roll out, each song that we have, we'll post them on there as we have those.
Mhm.
And then also we have our private Facebook community and our private Discord server, where we hope that you will join us behind the scenes, and where you can talk about even more things Practical Magic and meet other
Yeah.
people who are obsessed
Yeah.
with the same thing. So
Oh, speaking of the music, so I know we kind of mentioned, hey, we're doing these songs and we're real jazzed about the intros and outros. I want to let you guys know that's Justina singing and playing, and her voice is just a little angel baby, and I
Aw.
love that we have that. So show her some love because it's so catchy. I love that song.
Thank
So
you
I
so
think you did a great
much.
job. But that is Justina singing our intro and outro, and she is the main person singing on all of our songs at the moment.
Well,
But you get to
we
be
both wrote them, though.
we
Come
both
on,
wrote them.
Christina, give yourself the credit where credit
Yeah,
is due.
Well, I'll give myself credit in saying that a lot of the visual artwork for this project and hopefully for like our album cover will be done by me.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, again, we'll post all of our links below, where you can catch us, outside. How about that?
How
And
about
where you
it?
can support us. So I think that's it for today.
All right. This has been the Stinas. Thanks for listening to the Magnolia Street podcast.
We'll see you
We'll
next
see
time.
you next time.
At that house down the street. At that house on Magnolia Street. Would you go down to Magnolia Street where the wisteria grow out? And the house of magic and mystery. So would you go down to Magnolia Street?
What?
When you wrote, you're talking about Michael dying. It was like, what is it? Tour de France? And
That just kills me. That whole scene kills me. I'm like, well, that
Yeah.
scene killed Michael too. But
Oh, too soon.
too
All
soon.
right.
Too soon.